The year is 146 BC. The air hangs thick with the acrid stench of ash and blood. For 7 agonizing days and nights, the city of Carthage has burned, a towering inferno visible for miles across the sapphire expanse of the Mediterranean. What once was the wealthiest metropolis of its age, a magnificent jewel of trade and innovation, now lies in ruin. Crumbling walls, toppled columns, and the ghostly skeletons of once proud buildings stand as stark monuments to its defeat. Roman legionaries, hardened by countless campaigns, move through the smoldering debris, not with the triumph of victory, but with a chilling, methodical purpose. They scatter salt across the scorched earth, an act of ritualistic desolation, intended to ensure that nothing, not even a blade of grass, would ever grow again on this cursed soil. They want to wipe Carthage from the very memory of the world. This is not just the story of a city's demise. It is a forensic autopsy of how ambition, fear, and a burning rivalry can turn a vibrant civilization into an uninhabited wasteland. This is the story of how the greatest trade empire became ashes in 7 days, and the 146 years that led to its ultimate, fiery end. Our story begins not in fire, but in flight. The year is 814 BCE. A group of resolute Phoenician refugees, fleeing the oppressive grip of their brother King Pygmalion in Tyre, landed on a strategic promontory on the North African coast. Their leader was Alyssa, better known to history as Queen Dido, a woman of extraordinary wisdom and ambition. Legend says she was granted only as much land as an ox hide could encompass. With a cunning that would become characteristic of her future city, Dido cut the ox hide into a single, impossibly thin strip, encircling an entire hill, the Bursa, which would become the fortified heart of Carthage. From this modest beginning, a new power began to emerge. The Phoenicians, masters of maritime trade, imbued their new settlement with their unparalleled skills. They established bustling ports and trading posts, not just locally, but across the western Mediterranean. Leptis, Utica, Hadramedum, all budding satellites of the burgeoning Carthaginian power. They sailed west, far beyond the Pillars of Hercules, to the Atlantic coast of Africa, and even to the Cassiterides, the legendary Tin Islands. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense, at least not initially. They were merchants, driven by the insatiable appetite for profit and the strategic expansion of their commercial network. They established alliances, often through marriage, with local Berber tribes, slowly but surely consolidating their influence over vast swathes of North Africa. By the 6th century BCE, Carthage had evolved from a refugee settlement into a formidable naval power, rivaling and often surpassing its mother city, Tyre. But this rise was not without its challenges. The Greeks, too, were expanding their influence across the Mediterranean, and clashes were inevitable. The first major confrontation came in Sicily, an island strategically vital to both Carthage and the emerging Greek city-states. The Battle of Himera in 480 BCE, though a decisive defeat for Carthage at the hands of the Greeks, served as a stark reminder of the escalating competition for dominance in this dynamic, resource-rich sea. It solidified Carthage's resolve to control the western Mediterranean, setting the stage for future conflicts with any rising challengers. Carthage ascended to unparalleled wealth through a meticulous and ruthless pursuit of trade and resources, a true ketogenic diet for a burgeoning empire. Their secret lay in monopolizing crucial commodities and establishing an unrivaled logistical network. From the sun-baked plains of Iberia, they extracted silver in astonishing quantities, funding their navy and their ambitions. From the distant, mist-shrouded islands of Iberia, specifically the region of Gades, they secured a near monopoly on tin, a vital component for bronze, the metal that powered the ancient world's industries and armies. But it wasn't just raw materials. Carthage was also renowned for the exquisite Tyrian purple dye, a luxury commodity extracted from sea snails, so labor-intensive and rare that it became the color of royalty across the Mediterranean. Their merchant fleet was a marvel of the ancient world. Not only did they possess the largest and most advanced ships capable of carrying vast quantities of goods, but they also pioneered sophisticated financial instruments. They invented what could be considered the ancient world's first form of marine insurance, spreading the risk for their valuable cargoes across multiple investors, minimizing potential losses from shipwrecks or piracy. This innovation fueled even greater voyages and bolder ventures. As their coffers swelled, so did the envy of their neighbors. Across the narrow straits of Messina, on the Italian peninsula, a ravenous young power known as Rome watched with increasing apprehension. Rome, initially an agrarian society, was slowly consolidating its control over Italy and casting its gaze outwards. Further north, the Greek city of Massalia, a significant trading hub in its own right, also felt the pressure of Carthaginian dominance. The Mediterranean was becoming too small for these burgeoning powers, and the seeds of future conflict were being sown in the rich soil of Carthaginian success. The stage was being set for a clash of titans, a confrontation not just of armies, but of entire economic philosophies. The year is 218 BCE. The fuse, lit by centuries of simmering rivalry and economic competition, finally ignites. The Roman Senate, fresh from their hard-won victory in the First Punic War, demanded that Carthage cede Saguntum, a Greek city on the Iberian coast, allied with Rome. Hannibal Barca, a name that would echo through history as one of the greatest military commanders, had other plans. Swearing a blood oath against Rome since childhood, Hannibal laid siege to Saguntum, triggering the Second Punic War. His opening move would shock the world. Instead of engaging Rome in naval battles or conventional campaigns, Hannibal embarked on an audacious, seemingly impossible quest to invade Italy by land from the north. He assembled an army of perhaps 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and a legendary contingent of 37 war elephants. He then marched them across the Pyrenees, through hostile Gallic territories, and, in a feat of unparalleled logistical brilliance, over the towering, treacherous peaks of the Alps, battling not only Roman forces, but also unforgiving terrain, freezing temperatures, and rebellious tribes. The cost was immense. Many soldiers and almost all the elephants perished in the brutal crossing. But he emerged onto the plains of Cisalpine Gaul, a terrifying apparition, an enemy at Rome's doorstep. The first major engagement was the Battle of the Trebia in 218 BCE. Hannibal skillfully lured the impetuous Roman consul Sempronius Longus into a trap, with his brother Mago's cavalry ambushing them from hidden ravines. The Romans were routed, suffering terrible losses. A year later, in 217 BCE, Hannibal unleashed another masterstroke at Lake Trasimene. He ambushed a Roman army under Gaius Flaminius, using the thick morning mist and the lake itself as natural barriers, virtually annihilating the entire Roman force. The news sent shockwaves through Rome. Fear and panic gripped the city, but the Senate, though shaken, refused to surrender. They appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator, who adopted a controversial yet ultimately effective strategy, shadowing Hannibal, avoiding direct battle, and cutting off his supplies. This Fabian strategy earned him the nickname Cunctator, the delayer, but it slowly began to wear down Hannibal's forces. However, Roman impatience prevailed, and in 216 BCE, two new consuls, Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus, led a massive army, perhaps 80,000 men, to confront Hannibal at Cannae. It was intended to be the decisive battle, but it became Rome's greatest military disaster. Hannibal, with a smaller force, executed a brilliant double envelopment, trapping the Roman legions in a vice. The slaughter was unimaginable. Tens of thousands of Romans died, including Consul Paulus. The victory was a tactical masterpiece, but it was not enough to break the Roman will. Hannibal, without sufficient siege equipment or reinforcements, could not march on Rome itself. The years that followed were a grueling stalemate. Hannibal, brilliant as he was, could not sustain his campaign indefinitely without a secure supply line or a decisive political break among Rome's allies. Meanwhile, a young, audacious Roman general named Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Scipio Africanus, began enacting a bold counter-strategy. Instead of directly confronting Hannibal in Italy, Scipio proposed taking the war to Spain, Carthage's primary source of silver, manpower, and supplies. This silent pivot by port was a genius move. By cutting off Carthage's resources, Scipio aimed to bleed Hannibal dry and force him to return to Africa. Scipio captured Carthaginian Nova in 209 BCE, then won a decisive victory at Ilipa in 206 BCE, effectively expelling Carthaginians from Spain. Hannibal's 13-year nightmare in Italy was gradually becoming a slow, agonizing realization that his ultimate victory was slipping away. The stage was set for the ultimate confrontation, far from the battlefields of Italy or Spain, on the plains of Zama in North Africa. The year is 202 BCE. Hannibal, recalled from Italy to defend his homeland, now faced Scipio Africanus, the very general who had systematically dismantled Carthage's empire in Spain. Hannibal's army was a motley collection of battle-hardened veterans from Italy, newly recruited Carthaginian citizens, and a large contingent of Numidian cavalry. Scipio, on the other hand, commanded a well-trained Roman legionary force, crucially bolstered by the defection of Massinissa, the formidable Numidian prince, whose cavalry was now fighting for Rome. Hannibal, despite his numerical disadvantage and the lower quality of some of his troops, still held a trump card: 80 war elephants. But Scipio, a student of Hannibal's own tactics, had prepared for them. His legions were drawn up not in solid blocks, but in columns, with wide lanes in between, allowing the elephants to charge through harmlessly, often to be turned back by javelins and trumpets. The battle unfolded. Hannibal's elephants, instead of breaking the Roman lines, became a liability, stampeding back into his own ranks, causing chaos and confusion. The infantry clashed in a brutal, protracted struggle. Hannibal's veterans fought with desperate courage, but the momentum slowly shifted. Then came the cavalry. Massinissa's Numidian horsemen, combined with Laelius's Roman cavalry, returned from pursuing Hannibal's own retreating horsemen and struck the Carthaginian rear, a decisive enveloping maneuver mirroring Hannibal's own triumph at Cannae. History, in a cruel twist, was repeating itself. The Carthaginian lines broke. Hannibal witnessed his army shattered. It was his first and only major defeat. The cost of this battle was catastrophic for Carthage. The terms of surrender dictated by Rome were brutal, designed to cripple Carthage forever. Carthage was forced to pay an astronomical indemnity of 10,000 euboic silver talents over 50 years, a sum equivalent to hundreds of tons of silver. Its mighty navy, once the envy of the Mediterranean, was reduced to a mere 10 ships, allowed only for patrolling its own coasts. All its territories outside Africa, including Spain, were ceded to Rome. Crucially, and most humiliatingly, Carthage was forbidden from waging war outside Africa, and even within Africa, it could only do so with Rome's express permission. This clause, a seemingly minor detail at the time, would become the ultimate noose around Carthage's neck, setting the stage for its slow strangulation. Hannibal himself, a hunted man, eventually fled into exile, a tragic end for a commander who had brought Rome to its knees. Carthage was alive, but barely. It was a gilded cage, its wings clipped, its future dependent on the whims of its implacable rival. The next 50 years were a strange, precarious existence for Carthage. Rome, having achieved absolute dominance in the Western Mediterranean, could have easily annihilated its defeated rival. Yet, it chose not to. Perhaps it was the sheer exhaustion of decades of war, or perhaps a pragmatic understanding that a crippled Carthage could still serve as a useful trade partner, absorbing Roman goods and providing African commodities. With its military power neutered and its political ambitions curtailed, Carthage turned its prodigious energies back to its true forte, commerce. Despite the crippling indemnity, Carthaginian ingenuity and a booming agricultural sector allowed them to not only meet the Roman payments, but to prosper. Their lands were rich, their trade routes, though restricted, were still profitable. Carthage experienced an economic boom, exporting vast quantities of grain, wine, and olive oil to the hungry markets of the Mediterranean, Rome included. The Roman Senate, however, remained deeply suspicious. Every whisper of Carthaginian prosperity, every new ship built, every successful harvest, fueled old fears. And in the midst of this uneasy peace, one man became the embodiment of Roman paranoia, Marcus Porcius Cato, known as Cato the Elder. Cato, a staunch traditionalist and conservative senator, ended every single one of his speeches, regardless of the topic, with the chilling, insistent refrain, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. It was a constant drumbeat, a relentless call for annihilation that slowly permeated Roman public consciousness. His arguments were compelling, if not entirely rational. He pointed to Carthage's rapid economic recovery despite the indemnity, arguing that this only proved its enduring threat. He saw a vibrant, wealthy Carthage as an existential risk, a potential resurgence of the terror of Hannibal. Meanwhile, Rome had cleverly created a perpetual thorn in Carthage's side. Massinissa, the Numidian king who had sided with Scipio at Zama, was granted substantial territories adjacent to Carthage. His kingdom rapidly expanded, fueled by Rome's implicit approval. Massinissa, an opportunistic and ambitious ruler, systematically encroached upon Carthaginian lands, claiming fertile agricultural areas and strategically important settlements. Carthage, bound by the terms of the treaty with Rome, could do nothing without Roman permission. Every time Carthage appealed to Rome for arbitration, the verdict invariably favored Massinissa. These flashpoints became a constant source of friction, a slow-motion land grab that bled Carthage's resources and dignity. They were allowed to build walls, but not to defend them. They were allowed to trade, but not to protect their trade routes from Numidian raiders. Carthage was living on a knife edge, its very existence dependent on the whims of a cold, calculated Roman policy that was inexorably tilting towards its destruction. The precarious balance that had existed for 50 years finally shattered in 150 BCE, triggered by an event in the nearby provincial town of Utica. Utica, a loyal ally of Rome, had been granted special status and privileges, creating a direct conduit for Roman influence on the African coast. The escalating provocations from King Massinissa of Numidia became unbearable for Carthage. His raids into Carthaginian territory were no longer just minor incursions. They threatened the very heart of their agricultural wealth. Desperate and fed up with Rome's consistent refusal to back their treaty rights, Carthage, finally, fatally, decided to arm itself and retaliate against Massinissa without Roman permission. In their eyes, it was an act of self-defense after decades of Roman stonewalling. In Roman eyes, it was a direct violation of the 202 BCE treaty, a hostile act that provided the perfect casus belli. Utica, ever eager to curry favor with Rome, immediately reported Carthage's military actions, framing them as an aggressive breach of peace. This defection served as a convenient indictment, solidifying Roman accusations that Carthage was arming without permission and preparing for another war. The Roman Senate, especially the relentless Cato, seized upon this opportunity. A Roman embassy was dispatched to investigate. Though their minds were already made up, the chain of ultimatums began. First, Carthage was ordered to hand over all its weapons and war machines. In a desperate bid to appease Rome and perhaps to buy time, Carthage complied. Wagons laden with hundreds of thousands of weapons, including 200,000 sets of armor, were sent across the plains to Utica, a stark symbol of their submission. Then came the second, more crushing demand. They were to dismantle their entire fleet, save for a few ceremonial vessels. Again, they reluctantly obeyed, their once proud maritime power reduced to splinters. But the final ultimatum, delivered with chilling detachment, was the most devastating. The Roman envoys declared that Carthage itself, the city, must be destroyed, and its inhabitants relocate 10 miles inland, away from the symbolic and strategic coast. This was not about security, it was about annihilation. The Carthaginians, brought to the brink of despair, understood the crushing finality of this demand. To abandon their ancient harbor, their very identity forged by the sea, was unthinkable. It was a demand for cultural and economic suicide. The ultimatums, escalating from disarmament to relocation, were a calculated test of Carthaginian resolve, designed to push them to the breaking point. And they succeeded. Faced with the destruction of their city and their way of life, the Carthaginians finally, irrevocably, chose to resist. The Third Punic War, the war many Romans claimed they didn't want, had begun. The year is 149 BCE, and the Third Punic War had begun, though it was a war virtually nobody in Carthage wanted, and many in Rome questioned. With the final, unthinkable ultimatum delivered, abandon the city and move inland, the Carthaginians knew they had no choice but to fight for their survival. It was an act of sheer desperation. Their weapons had been surrendered, their fleet dismantled. Yet, with a surge of collective resolve, the citizens of Carthage embarked on an impossible task, rebuilding their defenses and rearming their populace. Every hand contributed. Work was frantic, day and night. Women cut off their long hair to be twisted into ropes for catapults. All available metal, from household ornaments to agricultural tools, was melted down to forge swords and armor. In an astonishing display of industrial capacity, they reportedly produced 300 swords and 500 spears a day, along with 100 shields and 1,000 catapult missiles. This was a city galvanized by mortal threat, but Rome had one more cruel demand. Before the full onslaught, Carthage was to hand over 300 children of their noblest families as hostages. This was a common Roman tactic, designed to ensure compliance and break the will of a rebellious populace. The scene must have been agonizing. Mothers wailing, fathers torn between resistance and the slim hope of appeasing Rome, as their children were led away, destined for an uncertain future in a foreign land. Meanwhile, the Roman political intrigue was just as intense. The Senate, while publicly committed to war, still harbored factions. Some, like Cato, wanted total annihilation. Others, perhaps still mindful of the costs of the previous wars, preferred a more subdued, controlled form of Carthaginian impotence. There was a parallel Cold War brewing within the Roman elite, a debate on the scope and severity of their victory. When the Roman legions, under the command of the consuls Lucius Calpurnius, Piso Saturninus, and Manius Manilius, finally arrived on the African coast near Carthage, they expected an easy victory. They had disarmed the city. Surely it would fall quickly. But they were met with fierce, unexpected resistance. The Carthaginians, led by their capable general Hasdrubal, not the brother of Hannibal, but a later commander, had managed to mount a formidable defense. The initial Roman assaults were repulsed, inflicting surprising casualties on the legions. The Roman campaign quickly bogged down. The consuls lacked the strategic foresight and tactical brilliance to breach Carthage's formidable triple-layered land walls or to navigate its unique double harbor system. The Roman high command found itself in a quagmire, its initial arrogance replaced by growing frustration and embarrassment. Into this stalemate, a destined figure emerged: Publius Cornelius Scipio Aemilianus. At just 37 years old, he was the adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, the hero of Zama. Scipio Aemilianus was serving as a military tribune, a relatively junior officer, but his intelligence, courage, and tactical acumen quickly became apparent. During the bogged-down campaign, he distinguished himself repeatedly, saving Roman forces from several perilous situations. He gained the respect of the soldiers and, crucially, the attention of the Senate. Despite being below the legal age for the consulship, and arguably reluctant for such a daunting command, the Roman people, desperate for a decisive leader, elected him consul in 147 BCE. The full scope of the task ahead became clear. Scipio Aemilianus was charged with finishing the war once and for all against a city fighting for its very existence. As Scipio Aemilianus took command in 147 BCE, he faced a formidable challenge: the city of Carthage itself. Its defenses were legendary, and its position almost impregnable. The city was protected on its landward side by a massive, triple-layered wall, a marvel of ancient engineering. The outer wall alone was an astounding testament to Carthaginian ingenuity, reaching up to 45 feet in height and 30 feet thick in places, punctuated by towers every 200 feet. Inside this formidable outer perimeter lay another 2 internal walls, creating a near impenetrable gauntlet for any attacking force. On the seaward side, the city was protected by its incredible double harbor system, a rectangular merchant harbor that led to a hidden, circular naval harbor capable of housing 220 warships, all concealed behind a massive seawall. These harbors could be closed off by chains, making any naval assault incredibly difficult. Scipio's first objective was clear: circumvent the land defenses and cut off Carthage from the sea, its lifeblood. He immediately set about constructing a circumvallation line, a massive siege wall encircling Carthage on its landward side, designed to starve the city into surrender. This monumental engineering feat, though arduous, would systematically isolate Carthage. At the same time, Scipio embarked on an equally ambitious project to block the entrance to Carthage's harbors. He began building a mole, a massive causeway, across the narrow mouth of the inner harbor, intending to seal off the city from any resupply or escape by sea. The siege quickly settled into a brutal war of attrition. Inside Carthage, conditions began to deteriorate. Food supplies, though initially hoarded, dwindled rapidly. Rations became scarce, leading to riots and desperate measures. The Carthaginian leadership, under Hasdrubal, was not without its internal divisions and ruthless pragmatism. Deserters, suspected traitors, and even captured Romans were often subjected to public execution, sometimes by crucifixion, on the walls of the city, a brutal psychological tactic to instill fear and deter dissent both inside and outside. The Romans, too, faced immense challenges. The long siege, the fierce Carthaginian resistance, and the grim conditions led to their own share of desertions and discontent. Disease, particularly dysentery and plague, ravaged both sides, taking a heavier toll than battle itself. As winter set in, morale plummeted, and the prospect of a protracted, agonizing siege loomed large. But Scipio, ruthless and disciplined, maintained order and pressed on, understanding that time and starvation were his most potent weapons against a desperate foe. The wall that held the world, Carthage, was slowly being choked. As the siege stretched into its second year, Scipio's relentless construction of the mole, intended to seal off Carthage's harbor, neared completion. It was an undertaking of immense scale, requiring thousands of men and vast quantities of raw materials. To the Roman legions, building outwards into the sea, it seemed an unstoppable force, a guarantee of ultimate suffocation for the trapped city. They watched with satisfaction as the gap narrowed, anticipating the day when no ship could enter or leave. But the Carthaginians, cornered and desperate, possessed an ingenuity born of necessity. While Scipio's forces toiled to block the known harbor entrance, the population of Carthage, with astonishing speed and secrecy, began to excavate a new channel. Over a period of just a few weeks, working day and night, they created a completely new, hidden dockyard within their existing circular naval harbor, and then a new, concealed exit to the open sea. It was a monumental feat of engineering, an act of defiance that stunned the Romans. When the new channel was finally complete, 50 Carthaginian triremes, freshly built and fully manned, emerged from the newly excavated passage, ghosting past the unsuspecting Roman fleet. The sight must have been electrifying for the besieged Carthaginians and utterly demoralizing for the Romans. For a brief, glorious moment, it seemed Carthage had found a way to break the blockade, to bring in supplies, or perhaps even to launch a counterattack. The Carthaginian fleet sailed out, testing the Roman naval defenses. But their sudden appearance, though a psychological shock, did not translate into a decisive tactical victory. Whether due to inexperience after years of disarmament, exhausted crews, or the overwhelming size of the Roman fleet, the Carthaginian ships, after several days of indecisive skirmishes, eventually retreated back into their newly constructed harbor. Scipio, realizing the gravity of the situation, swiftly moved to counteract this audacious move. He immediately ordered his forces to construct a new mole, this time to block the newly created channel, and at the same time, fortified the original mole with siege engines and ramparts to prevent any further breakouts. The window of opportunity for Carthage quickly closed. With both channels now firmly blocked and guarded, Carthage was truly entrapped. No ships could enter or leave. The city, once the undisputed mistress of the seas, was now an island, completely cut off from the outside world. The fate of Carthage was sealed. It was only a matter of when and how its walls would finally fall. Inside the besieged city, cut off from all relief, the situation grew increasingly dire. Famine tightened its suffocating grip. The grim reality of starvation transformed Carthage from a vibrant trade hub into a desperate survival zone. Food, once abundant, became a currency of unimaginable value. Markets, once bustling with exotic goods, now offered only the most wretched scraps. Roman chroniclers, eager to paint Carthage in the darkest light, reported horrific accounts. The price of a cat, it was said, soared to 200 denarii, a staggering sum equivalent to a Roman soldier's month's wages. Desperate citizens resorted to eating whatever they could find: roots, leather, even bark. The emaciated bodies of the dead littered the streets, adding to the pestilence and despair. In this atmosphere of unspeakable suffering, ancient, horrific rumors began to resurface. The Romans, with their highly effective propaganda machine, spread tales of revived Moloch pits. These were ancient Phoenician religious practices, sometimes involving child sacrifice, intended to appease the gods in times of extreme crisis. While historical debate continues on the extent and frequency of these practices in Carthage, the Roman propaganda was relentless. They painted the Carthaginians as barbarian heathens, willing to sacrifice their own children to their monstrous deities to avert defeat. These stories, whether entirely true or exaggerated for effect, served a crucial purpose for Rome. They dehumanized the enemy, justified the brutality of the siege, and hardened Roman resolve to utterly destroy a people they depicted as inherently evil. The goal was to remove any moral qualms about the impending annihilation. The Roman narrative became simple. Carthage was not just a military threat or an economic rival. It was a den of inhumanity and depravity that needed to be expunged from the earth. The constant drumming of Carthago delenda est was evolving from a policy of destruction into a campaign of moral extermination. While the Carthaginian people suffered untold agonies, enduring the ravages of hunger, disease, and the relentless Roman assault, the Roman legions outside the walls were psychologically prepared for the final, bloody act. The city, once a symbol of ingenuity and wealth, was now portrayed as a nest of barbarity, deserving of nothing less than total eradication. The stage was being set for the apocalyptic climax, where famine and fear would give way to fire and sword. The final assault on Carthage began with a terrifying intensity. It was the spring of 146 BCE. After 3 long years of siege, after months of starvation and disease had ravaged the city, Scipio Africanus launched his full, brutal attack. The Roman legions, driven by hunger for victory and the promise of plunder, crashed against the weakened outer walls. Day 1 saw the methodical breach. Battering rams thundered against ancient stones, sappers undermined the foundations, and ladders scaled the heights. After fierce, desperate hand-to-hand combat, the Romans finally broke through the outer defenses. But this was no easy victory. The fall of the outer wall only meant the beginning of a grimmer struggle. Street to street, house to house fighting. The narrow, winding alleys of Carthage offered perfect ambush points, turning every corner into a potential death trap. The Carthaginians, fighting for their homes, their families, and their very lives, resisted with suicidal ferocity. Each of the 7 days brought escalating horror. As the Romans pushed deeper into the city, they cleared house after house, often by scaling rooftops, dropping onto the enemy below, or setting entire blocks aflame. The air filled with the screams of the dying, the clang of steel, and the roar of spreading fire. The Roman soldiers, ordered to clear every building, were often covered in blood and gore, their bodies slick with the sweat of battle and the grime of smoke. Tens of thousands of Carthaginians, both combatants and civilians, perished in this inferno. The sick, the old, the children. None were spared in the initial, indiscriminate surge of violence. As the Roman advance reached the higher ground of the Bursa, where the citadel and temple stood, the fighting intensified into a desperate last stand. Thousands of Carthaginian soldiers and civilians, perhaps 50,000 inches total, retreated to the citadel, hoping for a final, miraculous defense. But it was not to be. On the 7th day, with the Roman legions firmly in control of the lower city and assaulting the citadel, the remaining Carthaginian forces realized the futility of further resistance. Hasdrubal, the Carthaginian general who had so defiantly resisted the Romans for years, surrendered. He begged for his life, throwing himself at Scipio Africanus's mercy. But not everyone shared his desire for survival at any cost. Hasdrubal's wife, watching from the ramparts of the burning citadel, reportedly scorned her husband's cowardice. In a final, horrifying act of defiance and despair, she slew her 2 young sons and then, with a terrible cry, plunged herself and their bodies into the flames of the burning temple of Eshmun, choosing a fiery death over Roman captivity. The last bastions of Carthaginian resistance fell. The city, which had defied Rome for centuries, was finally, utterly consumed by fire and sword. The 7 days of destruction were just the beginning of Carthage's erasure. What followed was a systematic, brutal dismantlement, a meticulous resetting of a metropolis to zero. As the fires still smoldered, Scipio Africanus commanded his legions to methodically loot and demolish every building, every structure, every monument that remained. The wealth accumulated over 7 centuries of trade filled Roman ships. Thousands upon thousands of Carthaginian citizens who had survived the initial slaughter were rounded up and enslaved. Roman accounts boast of 750,000 enslaved Carthaginian individuals, though this number is probably an exaggeration. Nevertheless, the scale of human bondage was immense, providing Rome with an unprecedented influx of labor and further enriching the victorious generals and senators. The great city, once spanning 50 miles, was reduced to a desolate wasteland. For 17 long days, the fires continued to rage, consuming everything in their path. The intense heat generated by such a vast conflagration was said by some to be so immense that it literally boiled the shallow waters of the Mediterranean near the coast, turning the blue sea into a roiling, steaming cauldron. The very soil was scorched beyond recognition. Then came the most symbolic act of all, one steeped in myth and ritualistic cursing, the plowing of salt. Roman historians recounted how Scipio Africanus ordered his legions to plow furrows of salt into the earth where Carthage once stood. This act, whether entirely historical or later embellished, was meant to invoke a curse, to ensure that the land would remain barren forever, incapable of sustaining life or agriculture. It was a declaration that Carthage would never rise again. The surviving Carthaginian citizens, those not enslaved, were scattered to the winds, their identity and culture dispersed and marginalized. The Punic language, once widely spoken, dwindled into obscurity. The rich Carthaginian heritage, its unique blend of Phoenician resilience and North African innovation, was systematically suppressed and often demonized by Roman victors. The land itself became the Roman province of Africa, its fertile plains now contributing grain to feed the burgeoning population of Rome. Scipio Africanus, observing the utter destruction, is said to have wept, recalling a line from Homer's Iliad, "The day shall come when sacred Troy shall fall, and Priam and his people shall be slain." He reportedly expressed a chilling premonition that Rome, too, despite its triumph, might one day share a similar fate. His words hung in the acrid air, a stark reminder that even the greatest empires are not immune to the cyclical nature of rise and fall. Carthage was gone, obliterated from the map, its very memory deemed a threat. All that remained was a desolate stretch of coastline, haunted by the specter of salt and fire. 700 years have passed since the fires of Carthage died down and the salt was sown. The ghost harbor, once brimming with galleys laden with exotic goods, lies beneath layers of Roman concrete and modern development. But traces remain. If you walk along the Tunisian coast today, near modern Tunis, you might tread upon ancient paving stones that were once part of Roman Carthage, a city they rebuilt generations later, carefully avoiding the cursed earth of the original Punic settlement. These slabs were quarried and repurposed from Carthage's own ruins, a testament to its enduring physical presence, even in destruction. The Genoese, centuries later, scavenged materials from the site, further blurring the lines between the ancient and the medieval. The legacy of Carthage, however, extends far beyond physical remnants. The mystery of Hannibal's tomb, for instance, remains one of history's tantalizing enigmas. Did he truly find his final resting place in Bithynia? Or does a more romantic, yet historically unconfirmed tale, place his remains closer to his homeland? The lack of conclusive evidence only amplifies the fascination with this titan of military strategy. Indeed, Hannibal's strategic genius continues to captivate scholars and military enthusiasts to this day, inspiring a level of fandom we might compare to that for fictional characters, perhaps even Hannibal Lecter levels of macabre fascination for his brilliant, chilling effectiveness. More recently, archaeological digs on the hill of Bursa, the very heart of Dido's original settlement, have unearthed poignant discoveries. Among them, hundreds of urns containing the cremated remains of infants and young children. These taffets, as they are known, located near the sanctuaries, reignite the ancient, controversial debate surrounding Carthaginian child sacrifice. While Roman propaganda undoubtedly exaggerated the practice to demonize their enemy, the archaeological evidence suggests that some form of ritualistic child burial did occur. These silent, haunting jars offer a glimpse into a complex, often misunderstood aspect of Carthaginian religion and culture, reminding us that history is never purely black and white, especially when told by the victors. The story of Carthage is not just one of a vanquished empire. It is a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition encountering relentless fear. It is a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of a people, and the chilling effectiveness of an enemy determined to erase every trace. Carthage, though obliterated, echoes through time, a phantom crossroads forever haunted by salt and fire, asking us to reflect on the fragility of even the greatest civilizations and what truly survives the sweep of history.